red flag training. This is the 11th virtual training that we have done since July 2021. And you can see on the left-hand side of all the training that we've completed. And if you missed any of this training, or if you need a refresher, you can always go out to the support community website and you can review the videos, and we have handouts for every one of those on the left-hand side. So please take advantage of that. On the right-hand side is the training that we have planned that's upcoming. May 10th, we're going to be doing beginners caseworker training. We've already done beginners intake. And then you can see the rest of them with the support community website. Then we're going to have a series of Ask the Expert Q&As for case intake, caseworker, and treasury. And this one's probably the most important. We need your input. These training sessions are only as valuable as you think they are. So we want to make sure that we're addressing the right topics. So if you have any ideas of any topics that we haven't addressed that you would like to see training around, please send Amanda an email and let her know. Okay.
Hey, John. Hey, John.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's
Yes.
Amanda. They're saying they can't hear you too well, so I don't know if you can just speak up a little bit more. The microphone's toward the, the front of the room there, so.
Oh God, I'm screaming here. I'll try again. Okay.
Is it part here? Is it this?
Okay. Yeah, bring it closer. Okay,
right.
so I'm gonna scream a little louder. How's that? Hopefully you can hear me. I want to start off by just reviewing what I consider to be some red flag guidelines that you should be aware of. Conferences share clients, so you need to remember a red flag in one conference is a red flag in all conferences. I'm sure most of you know that, but it's a good reminder. Avoid using red flag for conference-specific guideline limits, like every conference has them. I know we do at Holy Family. I'm sure you do as well. It might be around your pantry that a client can only visit the pantries so many times during the year, or you might only help a client one time a lifetime or 3 times a lifetime, whatever they may be. I think we should avoid using those red flag for those kinds of limits.
Hey, John, this is Kevin Matheson from Holy Trinity. So why? I'm trying to understand that that's exactly what CMS from the conference perspective is designed to do, is help us track and maintain our clients to our standards. So yes, you may have visibility across the council or the diocese, archdiocese, but red flagging to a particular conference's standard is exactly the kind of thing that St. Vincent is designed around, right? It's a local charitable organization,
Right.
And this is a tool that's supposed to be helping us. So
Yeah.
wouldn't it be better to you red flag to your conference guidelines and then annotate in the comment section or in the notes on why you're doing it, so that somebody who's looking from externally, like yourself or somebody from another conference, can understand why we red flag the client, but it's our client in our conference, and so our members need to know for continuity purposes why that client was red flagged.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kevin. Here's the issue. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is policy more than it is anything else. And you got to understand, nobody owns a client, right? We don't own our clients in Holy Family. That client might move into 14 different boundaries within St. Vincent de Paul. And they might move to different parishes. So I have to assume that whatever I'm putting into CMS is going to be visible to everybody, not just to my conference, because I don't own them.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
So can I jump in here because I had an instance, this is Tracy Giglio at St. Jude. We had a client that was bouncing around OLA and Holy Spirit and eventually came to me and he was red flagged by Holy Spirit. So I just called up conference president. We had a chat, she agreed, let's give him another chance and see what happens. And we just communicated together. And at the end, the client still didn't fulfill what he was supposed to do. So, I returned that red flag. But, of course, we updated all the information so all the conferences would know, the history of this client. And I just communicated with the other presidents. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what I'm advocating for. Is you set your standard at the conference level, and when somebody outside of the conference has to deal with the client, and I can give a couple examples from myself personally, but for time I won't. And you communicate to the other conference. That's exactly what I'm advocating for.
Yeah.
And John, you said it was policy. I'm trying to see. I went and looked because I read this deck before. And I'm trying to find where that policy is written. So
which policy?
About the fact that you should avoid using red flag for conference.
No. This is John Pepe. This is not St. Vincent de Paul. This is John Pepe, because I'm going to show you in a little while, Kevin, maybe an alternative of how we could do both. Okay. And that's all that I'm saying, is that a lot of our conferences, they see the word red flag and it's a hard stop, which kind of is a good segue into the third point. Just the term red flag means I am not going to deal with this client. This is a bad client. Red flag, I believe, and I think others would say, just what you said, it's a caution. It's an alert. It doesn't mean that it's a disqualifier for assistance. You got to go read. You got to read what the person wrote. You got to dig into the situation for the cases before you make your determination of whether or not you're going to continue with this client that's red flag, or you're going to do what Tracy did, pick up the phone, call somebody, find out what's going on with the situation. So personally, this is a personal opinion, not policy, not St. Vincent de Paul. It'd be better if we kind of like treated it more as a caution and not necessarily a hard red flag, which has all different kinds of connotation. That's a personal opinion. And like I said, it should not be an automatic disqualifier for assistance. You need to do your homework. You need to do the research. And the punishment, that's my way of saying it, needs to fit the crime. In other words, if it's something really minor, that's something I think personally as a caseworker that is, not that serious, I don't think we should be red flagging somebody. If it's very serious, of course, red flag them. And it's not a life sentence. And this one is probably the most important. There are a zillion, and I believe me, I went through the database of clients that we have red flagged that are still red flagged 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, and no action's been taken at all. So it's almost like it's a life sentence for these people. Okay, let me get into red flag roles and allowed functions. Over to the left-hand side, you see I got it broken down by roles. Right-hand side is the allowed functions. So if you have an intake role, you can red flag existing clients. You cannot red flag a new client. That is pretty much deferred to the caseworker because it's the first time you're really working with that client. You can withdraw a red flag or withdraw a petition for removal. If you're an intake person, you can petition for removal of a red flag. You can add and review client record notes, which I'm going to spend some time talking about. Some of you might be aware of this feature in CMS. Some of you might not be aware of it. For existing clients, and I underlined existing clients, not new clients. and you can view red flag history. And I'll show you all this stuff. As a caseworker, you can do the same thing as you can do as an intake person, but you can also red flag new clients, and you can print the red flag clients report. Now, the important role that every conference should have is a records manager role. That person gets to review the red flag audit report, decides whether to keep or remove red flags. You could submit a petition for removal of a red flag. That's great. But if the records manager doesn't take any action, that client is still red flagged. So that record manager is extremely important to complete the loop. The records manager can also delete previous red flags. I'll show you how to do that. And they can change a client status from active to red flag back to active. So this is kind of a matrix by role of what you can do with the red flag. Okay, the red flag petition process. If you're not familiar with red flagging, you'll hear us a lot talk about petitioning. The intake person, the caseworker, petition the red. Somebody's got their mic on. Can you mute yourself, please? Okay, thank you. So if you're not familiar with the petition process, it goes something like this. The intake and the caseworker petition the records manager for a client to be red flagged. Although the client is red flagged immediately, you can petition for the red flag to the records manager, but that client is red flagged immediately regardless of what the records manager does at that point in time, or for a red flag to be removed. Those are the two things that an intake and a caseworker can do. The records manager reviews the petitions and decides either to keep or remove the red flag. If no action is taken, the client's red flag status remains the same. Once again, you as a caseworker, you as an intake person, you can petition for a red flag to be removed. If the records manager takes absolutely no action, that red flag stands. Okay, I'm not going to read this whole list to you, but this is what we're going to cover as we go through the demo.
John, can I interrupt 1 second? Does CMS send an alert to the record manager's email box or anything, or
Yeah,
CMS?
Very good question. I was going to get to that. So I might as well just hit messages overall. Yes, when a caseworker intake person red flags a client, an email is sent to the records manager and a message is put in the message box of the records manager. Now it goes the other way. When the records manager takes action, and that could be a removal or that could be keeping the red flag, a message, not an email. I haven't been able to track down the email part, but a message is put in the message box of the person who requested that action. So that's the way the messages kind of flow. Does that answer your question? Good. Okay, so this is the red flag demo that we're going to go through. And I'm going to save that slide for last. So let me get out of here. Let me go into a demo. And the first thing I'm going to do, I always believe in, let's start with the end in mind, okay? So the end in mind is obviously, what does a red flag look like on the client's record? I set up a client called Jane Red Flag, very unique. And there she is. Okay, so if you went out and you did a search on Jane Red Flag, this is what the red flag looks like on a client record. By the way, if you're reading that text, that's really a true story. That was my client. And it was a very, very interesting story, to say the least. But I red flagged this client. But here's what I want to point out to you is that we do stamp the red flag with the date and the person who red flagged that client. And you see that there's a red flag tab here. So if you did a search, that's what you would see. Now, if you're a records manager, or if you're a case manager, you can update, you can edit that text if you wanted to. But this is what came through from the person who actually red flagged that client. Now, the other thing I'll show you is the history. If you're not familiar with history, we do keep history in the clients. And there's the red flag history of the client. It appears there as well. Okay? So like I said, I just wanted to start with, because we're going to go through how to red flag in case intake, how to red flag in casework, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is what it looks like on the client record. So I have pre-staged.
John, in those, when a red flag comes in that way, is there some way to add an additional message to that and still keep the old one as well? So that it reflects the different people that are entering the red flag information?
Well, you could add to that. I showed you how to do the edit. So that's the original information. You can come down and add to that if you wanted to.
Okay, but then the person who's doing the addition, it's going to reflect his name as initiating the red flag.
I am not following you about that. Let's go.
In other words, if the caseworker instituted a red flag
Yes.
and was approved, and then somebody else wanted to add to it, it's going to take away the previous name of the one who instituted the red flag and substitute the last person who made the addition.
Not what I just showed you just now. It won't change. If you did what I showed you where you can edit it for the second person, it will keep the original person who did the red flag.
It will, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's not going to change that. Okay, so like I said, I staged some of this stuff so that we wouldn't spend a lot of time clicking and entering in data. I wanted to get you right to the point. So this is case intake. And this is an existing client because, like I said, you cannot red flag a new client in case intake. When you have advanced to this tab, that's when you see the red flag client button. That's the first time that you see it. So if you're in case intake, you see red flag client, you can click on this and you got two choices. You can, well, you got three choices really. You get out, go back to where you came from. You can close this case without assistance immediately, which means because you're in the inquiry phase, this case would basically be canceled, but the client be red flagged. Or you could continue, you could red flag the client and you could continue. Okay? So we'll red flag the client. It says, please review and correct the errors because I didn't enter in a reason of why I'm red flagging the client. It is a required field. This is just a test. Okay? I'm going to red flag and I'm going to continue. Okay. Now you can see that it says red flag, right? Now also notice that red flag client just changed to red flag details. This is important. because you'll see this also in casework. When you're able to red flag a client, it would say red flag client. And when some action's already been taken, you will see red flag details. So if we click on that, you can withdraw that red flag that you just submitted. And we can withdraw it. It went back to red flag client. Hopefully you saw all that and followed it. The other thing I want to call your eye to is this client record notes. It'd be interesting to know, and there's no time to do this, of how many of you even know that this exists. But this is really important. There's a difference between the client record notes and the situation. The situation is on a case basis. Every case has situation notes. This is at the client level. Whatever you enter here will stay with the client throughout all of their cases. So what I was going to suggest, if you wanted to, this is an alternative, you don't have to do it. But for those things that are very specific to your conference, that maybe you don't want to use red flag, that you use this client record notes feature. And all you do is you add and you put in, this is a note for the caseworker. Then you can create as many of these as you want. What you'll see is that basically when this case moves to the caseworker will have this accordion as well. And all they have to do is flip it open and they can see your note. But keep in mind, this note now is permanently stamped on the client's record. So if you did a search on this client and you looked at the notes, you will see this note and any other notes that were.
So John?
Hello?
Sorry.
Hello? Hello? Are we still on?
Hey, John, this is Kevin Matheson.
Hi, Kevin.
Yeah, a question about that. So obviously the notes stay are a permanent part of the client record. If the red flag, if you go through the regular red flag process and put down comments and then withdraw the red flag, is any of the background information that is then included with that red flag, does it disappear?
You mean the withdrawal that I just did just now?
Yes.
No, not at that point. No,
Okay.
So when I withdrew that red flag, that thing's gone. In other words, I was going through the process and I red flagged the client and said, maybe I shouldn't have done this. It's sort of, Kevin, it works like a withdrawal of a check, if you will, where you can withdraw it at any time. And that's basically the way that the withdrawal works. So there isn't an audit of that withdrawal because that was done during the process. But when you petition for a red flag to be removed and then it's removed and then the client gets red flagged again and then it's removed, I'll show you later on, there is a history of those red flag removals.
Okay, and that includes the remarks that go with the red flag, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you'll see that. We're going to get to that in a minute. But I wanted to introduce this client record notes as another alternative, if you choose, your choice of using this maybe in lieu of some of the ways that you're using red flag, because it is a permanent stamp at the client level and it's seen in all cases. Okay? So we will advance. I think I was going to do this. Let's see. Oh, by the way, we were in the inquiry phase. Now we have a case. So remember when I tell you when you were in the inquiry phase, if you close without assistance, what would happen is the record would be gone. It'd be like a cancel, but the client would be red flag. Well, once you advance to this point where you have a case number and you close without assistance, what will happen is that the system will put a closed no assistance provided record out on the client's record and obviously red flag the client. So two different things, depending upon where you are in the process. If you're in the inquiry phase, obviously there's not going to be a closed no assistance, past assistance, if you will. If you've advanced to where it is a case, you will see it. So we're going to close this guy without assistance. It's going to ask me for a reason, only testing for training. We're going to close this case. Okay, so that took care of that guy. And what happened? One of the questions before, as soon as I did that, because I red flagged that client, a message got sent to the records manager, got an email, and they also got something in their box as well. Okay, so that's at the intake level. Now we're going to go to casework, and once again, I set up another original client here called Red Flag Casework. It's the way, and again, I just wanted to stage this to bypass a lot of the stuff that we didn't need to go through. Okay, so I'm on the Prepare tab. And if this is an existing client, I will see the red flag button. If this is a new client, I will not see that red flag button until I have advanced to the client tab. Think about it. It's a new client. You got to wait until after you come back from the home visit before you know what you know, and you can decide whether or not you want to red flag that client. But if it's an existing client, you could do it throughout any of these tabs, really. So I just wanted to point that out. There is a difference between new and existing. The other thing is, remember I talked about the client record notes. That can get passed from the case intake person to the case worker. And again, these notes could have been put on by a case manager at the client level using search, or they could have come through a case. Doesn't matter. They're permanently stamped on the client's record. And this is just a couple that you might want, that the caseworker might want to review before moving on with the case. Okay. So we could do the same thing here, red flag a client. And let's say that I said red flag and continued. Again, it's going to say you didn't enter in a reason. This is a good reason to red flag this client. Okay, and we're going to red flag and continue. Once again, I'm going to call your attention to this button because it does change. When I was able to do something like red flag the client, it said red flag client. Now it says red flag details. And once again, I can withdraw this red flag. And the purpose of this is in case you made a mistake or in case you had second thoughts, you can just withdraw the red flag, no harm, no foul. Okay? So I wanted to show you that. Now I'm going to go, what's going on here? These things pop up. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna remove a red flag. So this client has already been red flagged previously. We're in case intake right now because we're in the inquiry portion, right? So we're gonna petition for this client to be, to remove the red flag. And once again, whenever you see red flag details, that means there's something else behind it. You cannot red flag this client. Obviously, it's already been red flag. Here's the reason for the red flag. So the case intake person gets to see that, clicks red flag details, and can petition for removal. Now, the theory behind this is that this case intake person is petitioning for removal. Once again, if the records manager does nothing, it doesn't matter. This client will stay red flagged. The records manager must take some action to say, okay, after they read everything and just and agree, they can remove the red flag. Or they can read everything and say, I disagree. Let's keep the red flag. But this is only a petitioning for removal. The intake person does not remove it. The only person who removes it is the records manager. So we're going to petition for removal. Well, tell me why you want to remove it. Because time has expired. Okay, so I'm going to petition for removal. I haven't removed it, I'm just petitioning. Once again, you see red flag details. I can withdraw that petition if I wanted to. Okay, goes back to red flag details. I can petition for, and you keep doing that. So we're going to petition for removal on this one. Has been red flagged for 2 years. I don't know. Okay, so we petition for removal there. And once again, I'll call your eyes, have your eyes go to this client record notes area. You can enter in notes as well and put this on the permanent record of the client. So you can do this in casework as well. So you can do in what was it? The intake process. So
John, I have one question on this. Is the conference like president, vice president? So they're unable to do a removal unless they're in as a records manager as
right.
well?
That's right. Anybody can be a records manager. You can have 10 people be records manager.
Right, okay.
And they can
Okay,
be presidents.
you have to sign them all, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you just assign the role to whoever you want, to one person or to 10, whatever you decide.
Right.
Okay? Okay, so that's how the removal works. Okay, so now I want you to switch hats and we're going to go over and we're going to be the records manager now. Okay? Now, the records manager, if you have that role, you will see this red flag audit option on your main menu. You will not see this if you don't have a records manager role. Okay? So if you click on it, which I've tried to do and nothing's happening, There it goes. You will see this audit report, which I'll declare myself, I do not like. And I don't like it for lots of reasons. I don't like it because I think what it should show me is only the red flags in my conference that I red flagged. This shows you everybody. It shows you the world. That's one thing I don't like about it. The other thing I don't like about it is the sequence. It is from the oldest to the newest, where it needs to be just the reverse. It should be the newest to the oldest. Okay? And every time that I do something, I got to come back and I got to resort. So this isn't the best, but it's what we got. And it is the thing that the records manager needs to pay attention to. Because like I said, here I put through with the intake, I put through, I added a red flag. And the records manager needs to take action. So the records manager would click on it. They would read the red flag, why this person was red flagged, and then a decision. I'm either going to keep that red flag, I agree, this was a good reason and we should red flag, or I'm going to remove that red flag. The records manager has veto power here. They can decide whether to keep or remove, but no action is an action. It stands, whatever it was, it was. So if I say I want to keep that, it'll be gone from my list now. I don't like this because I always got to sort it the other way. It's gone from the list. Now, the other one that we did was the removal. But you notice that the type, and by the way, if you sorted this by type, this is a test database, but I'll bring you over to the production database. You will be shocked how many entries we have there that records managers have taken no action. You'd be shocked. I was. But anyway, this is a test database. It's just as bad, but you can sort it where you can see all your lists. The message that got sent to the records manager was a lift message, lift the red flag. There's no such thing as far as the case intake person is concerned or the case worker is concerned. They only know about removal. That's what they say. But the case of the records manager sees somebody requested a lift to lift this red flag. Click on it, once again, go through the same analysis and looks at the reason and everything, says, you know, that's not, that's a good reason. I think I will remove the red flag. It has been 2 years.
John, one thing that may be beneficial also to the records manager is when you're in that review, you can click on conference and just get all those that are assigned for reviews for your conference,
Well,
rather than seeing a whole diagram.
yeah, you can. I was going to show that. The problem with that, I think, but and I didn't want to display. This is a test database, so please don't think these conferences got all these open. The problem with that is that you click on that one, you do what you need to do, you go back, you got to go do it again. See what I'm saying? Yeah, you can click on conference and you get to see it, but you always got to click on the conference column in order to get it sorted again. But you're right, you can see all of yours just by clicking on the conference.
And the other thing is this list is only for the reviews or the removals. This does not indicate everybody who has a red flag. It's not a review of all red flags.
It is, you are exactly You are exactly right. And I'm going to show you where you might be able to get that list for your conference. There's actually 2 places in the system. I would not say they're great, but it's something. Okay. So that's the audit. That's the keep, remove, and lift. Let's go to the history of a red flag. Okay. Let me go back. I set up a client that has a history of being red flagged. Okay, what that means is, here's the scenario. Client was red flagged, somebody petitioned for removal, it was approved. Client got red flagged again, somebody petitioned for removal, and client got red flagged, got removed, and it went on and on. What CMS does after the first one is keep track. So down here, you see this accordion where it says red flag history. Client is not currently red flagged, but this client has a history of being red flagged. Now, Kevin, hopefully you're still on the line because you asked about this before. Yep. If I click on it, I will see the reason, Kevin.
Yep. Got it. That's very helpful.
Okay, good. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before. Maybe you haven't, because you haven't had clients that have been red flag, removed, red flag, removed. But if you ever do, CMS keeps a history of those removals. Okay?
Now, to split hairs here a little bit, John, if a client is red flagged, basically calls into the helpline, asks, an intake, and we do a review and decide to keep the red flag. All right. I guess we could just put something in notes to document that the review has been done and a red flag has been retained, because he or she has not been removed from the red flag status. Is that correct?
Yeah. If the client calls in and you decide that, I assume what you're saying is the client's already red flagged?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the client's already red flagged and called in, you had a conversation with the client, you just want to put something in the notes about that conversation. You're not going to change the status of the red flag. You're not going to submit, you're not going to petition for removal. You want to keep the client red flag, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you just make a note there. And again, if you do it at the case level, in the situation notes, what you're relying on, Kevin, is people going through the situation notes. And I'm going to tell you, we got some great caseworkers, and I know some of them really go through those in detail. And then we got some that are, don't want to dig, just don't want to dig. That's why I'm going to keep coming back and beating this dead horse about this client records notes. If you put that conversation, let's just say that conversation, client called in, we discussed with the client, and our decision is red flag stands. You might want to put that here because this will get broadcast throughout all of the cases. Only as an example of how else you can use this client records notes capability. Okay.
Got it.
So that's let me go back and let's see now. I wanted to do a search and I set up a client called, let me clear this guy. Okay, the other gentleman who asked about seeing all of your red flags for your conference, here's one way of doing it. I don't even know if you ever seen this before. I know my eye never goes here at all, where it says red flag only. I'm always putting in a client's name. So I'll tell you the truth, that escapes me. But you can check that box, and I could say because one of the zip codes Holy Family shares with another conference is 30067. So I say, show me all my red flags for zip code 30067. Here's my list. I only wish it was this short. I'm sure it's not for 30067. So this is one way that you can work your list, if you will. Like one of the things that I'm recommending at the very end is that you go through your red flags within your conference and look at them and say, are they still valid? You know, some of these, you know, go back to 2016, 2015, who knows when. And time is up. You know, the client situation probably changed, probably hasn't changed, who knows? But at least you have the ability to go through the list and to make a conscious decision of whether or not you're going to remove that red flag or not. This is one way you can get all your red flags. And probably the best way to do it, especially you lucky conferences that own zip codes, we don't. I would have to put in certain addresses here to kind of narrow it down for Holy Family, which you could do, by the way. I could say, show me 300, show me all Delk Road. And I'm using a wildcard feature. And my list got shorter. Okay? So that's one way you can use it. But I was going to get to history. So I set up a client called History Red Flag.
Nope, I gotta go.
Okay, so there's my client. And this is the client that had the history of being red flagged multiple times. That we saw when we tried to, I think, yeah, when we brought that client up during case intake. So there's the history red flag. Here's the reason. Once again, click on it. And by the way, if you are a records manager, you can delete that history if you wanted to. Now, not true if you are a caseworker or a case manager, you get to view it, but you cannot delete it. Only a records manager has the privilege to delete it. So once again, if you wanted to see the history in black and white, I always do an update because I never know when the last time this report was updated. It actually tells me here someplace. Okay, it's right there. Here's the red flag history. Now, what it does show you, Kevin, you asked about this before. What it does show you is not only the original red flag reason, but it shows you the removal reason. So this person was red flagged because of da 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 da. They were removed because of da 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 da. So for each one of those entries, it shows you the original reason and it shows you the reason of why they were removed. This text doesn't do it justice, but I think you got the point. I think I can show that. Yeah, okay. So the reason here, and believe me, I didn't do a very good job of this. That was the original reason. That was the removal reason. That was the original reason. That was the removal reason. Okay? Got it?
John, this is Mickey Thomas. I have a question. When you did your list and you used a zip code, if we cover just one county only, can I put in Forsyth County and get that list, or does it have to be more specific, like all the zip codes in this?
answer this. Mickey, you're talking about here, right? When I put in the
Correct.
zip code?
Instead of the zip code, if I selected the county, will I get everything in that county?
I don't know. So right now, I'm not seeing Cobb County coming up as an option. I mean, that's what I would typically see in Holy Family. I don't know. I don't know. I
Okay,
think just try that, because if it does, you obviously see it in the drop down.
right.
This is the test system as well, so God only knows how it's set up.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Yeah, if you've been entered in county, when you entered in your clients, when you created a new client, more than likely you would see them in the drop down. Okay, so I showed you the history. The other thing I wanted to show you was change in client status. So let me go to history again. Red flag. Okay, now you can only do this if you are a records manager. So let me preface it by saying that. So this client is not currently red flagged, but has a history of being red flagged, right? So if I click edit and click change status, and by the way, like I said, if you have a records manager role, you will see this. If you don't, you will never even see this. I can change the status. The status of the client right now is active. If I wanted to, I can make that a red flag client. Okay? I could red flag that client. And I could put in the reason why I'm doing it. Let's just say that's Stan. Testing status change. Okay, so now the client is red flagged. There it is. And we see the red flag history. This is, I hate to say, a shortcut of how you can red flag a client, and you can reverse it. You can then, and this is what I welcome you to do, is as you go through your clients and you want to change their status from red flag because it's been out there for such a long time back to active, you can do that as well. Now you don't see the red flag. But look, the history record just got put out there. Testing the staff. So it's keeping track of those for you. Okay? So let me bring you over to, and again, I would not say this is the best, but it's the best we got of how to get a report on your red flag clients. Now, this will allow you to print. You can download, you can preview, you can download to a CSV file, you can turn it into Excel, do whatever you want to do with it. But if I do nothing here, for the zips that I serve, that I put into my conference profile, like we serve 30067, 30062, 30068, we serve those three. Now we share those with other conferences, but in my conference profile, those are the three zips that we have. If I do nothing, it will give me a list of all of those clients that are red flagged within those three zip codes. So this is conference specific. This is not for all conferences. So you can see the zip codes, 3060, 278. Those are my zip codes that I have listed in my conference profile. So you could do that. If, and again, in our case, that's not specific enough because we share the zip code. If I said, show me all of the red flags that live on Roswell Road, and I don't know if we spell road out or if we did RD, who knows? And I just put in a wild card and said preview. Then I'm going to get anything that has the word Roswell in it, which it does right there. Okay, so I got 14 of them. Then I can download them. Then I can download them to a CSV file, an Excel spreadsheet, and work with these clients if I want. Like I said, it's not the best because you just can't click on them, see what the reason is, all of that. It's just a listing of your red flag clients. That's all it is. Okay. Before I go to the last slide, no, I'll tell you what, let me go to the last slide. I'm sure it'll generate a whole lot of questions and we can then open it up for a bit. Let's see now. There you go. Okay. Again, this is John Pepe's list. This is not coming from anybody else. Having been a president, a caseworker, case intake, you name it, in a conference, and certainly CMS, seeing all different conferences, this is what I would recommend. First of all, if you don't have a records manager role assigned to somebody, please assign one, at least one. And I would even advocate that the president should be a records manager. So the president can see everything that's being done with these clients as far as being red flag. But that's your choice. Do whatever you like, but that's my recommendation. I think we reinforce that the red flag should be interpreted as a caution, as an alert, because we do not have a common definition of what a red flag is across conferences. I don't believe we do. I think everybody has their own interpretation of what it means. I don't think there is a common definition. I would be more, John Pepe speaking, I'd be more comfortable if red flag did not say red flag, that'd say caution flag or something like that, because I think we should reserve red flag for serious offenses where you suspect fraud, where you believe that the behavior, you know, there's abusive behavior or language, or the client's not being truthful with you, showing you phony IDs. I mean, the list goes on. That's what I think. I think you should consider using client records notes for your guideline limit violations. Only consideration of kind of separating the two of what is serious, we'll red flag them. What is serious within our conference, it's very serious. And we want to make it visible to everybody as that case moves down the path. You can use client record notes to do that. I would also suggest that you review your red flag clients and determine if the red flag should be removed or should stand, but at least do a pass over it. Because we have clients out there that have been red flagged, and nobody's done anything with them, and they come in 3 years later, someone sees a red flag, and it's all cycles stop. We're not going to give them any assistance. And lastly, I say clean up the red flag audit. I showed you, I'm going to just do something here. And if I go here and go to the production system, This is what we currently have out there. That no action has taken place at all on any of these.
2017.
Oh, yeah, 2016, 17. I mean, I could sort it by date if you want.
Yeah, I just have to.
I
see
mean,
those things.
there's 2020,
So
2 years old. Nobody has even looked at
2019.
any of these.
On and on, yeah.
That's what's there right now, waiting for a records manager to take action. That's how long the list is. So all those requests to lift the red flag, they were never acted on. So those clients are still red flagged. Regardless of that, the case intake person, the caseworker submit the petition for removal, doesn't matter. The records manager did nothing. So it stands as submitted. And that's just to give you an idea of the list that keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Okay? So with that, I will, again, I was ending with this slide. That's what I meant by clean up the red flag audit report. Go through it, sort it by your conference, and clean it up. Say keep, say remove, say something, but take some action.
And may I ask a question, John?
You may.
How do you get to be records manager? In other words, somebody has to give you access to the records manager's capability, right?
Exactly, and that's your conference administrator. Your conference administrator assigns roles. They could assign you a case intake role, they could assign you a caseworker role, they could, assign you all the roles of treasury role, whatever. They could assign you a record manager's role.
Okay, so the administrator for the conference is who
That's right.
sets it. Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you. Thank you.
That's right. Okay, we got some time for questions. I'm sure this is
Listen, I had one back to the red flag clients. And then they were active on, let's say it was 2017.
yeah.
Could there be a report generated per conference or casework even down to that level that could be emailed and say, hey, or somebody take a look at this?
Yeah, well, the only report is what I showed you, Joe, by going,
One at a,
well, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, well, no, you could download, when I went over to the conference reports
Right.
in clients,
Right.
and you had red flag,
Yes.
and it gives you a list of the clients.
Right.
I don't believe that tells you when they were red flag. That just gives you a list of the clients that were red flag. No, there's a lot of holes and there's missing tools here.
Because this is a big, to me, now, I don't know, this seems to be a very big deal because if a client who was red flag 5 years ago, I think you alluded to, comes, looking for assistance, they're gonna get a cold shoulder perhaps, to use that term, or maybe they'll explain and work through it.
Right.
But it's gonna cause, at the very least, it's gonna cause more time and effort on the caseworker's part or the intake person just to straighten it out.
Exactly. I mean, go back to what Tracy said earlier, she picked up the phone, she called somebody and said, hey, we got this client's red flag, what's the deal? And they discussed it. That's great.
Right.
But then we do have caseworkers, case intake people who will not go that extra step, see the red flag and say, sorry, you don't qualify for assistance.
Yeah.
So that whole red flag thing means a different thing to different people.
Right, and that's, right. And the caution alert.
Caution.
In my opinion, is a good, whatever one word, but it doesn't, it's not definitive.
It's not definitive, and it implies do further research.
Yes.
You know, go through the case notes, go through the situation.
Potential problem, you know, whatever you wanna
Right.
call it.
There's something you should be aware of. You know, in today's world, we get notifications on our smartphone, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a notification, it's a caution.
Yeah.
And you have to dig to find out what's going on.
And
Thank you, John. Go ahead.
I would, you know, within our conference, our policy is we use the red flag just for that. In other words, a conversation has to be had with the president and or the board on anybody who's been red flagged and has called in for additional help after being red flagged. I think part of the discussion you brought up about, you know, high crimes versus misdemeanors, you know, is it possible to have Aguilar do a yellow flag? In other words, you know, you have a red flag client, and those are truly the showstoppers. We've had a couple clients that we have proven that they have committed fraud against us. Versus, to your point, some of the things that you know, that I had one client that, you know, the husband got red flagged, and then they divorced and the wife needed help. And so we had to go through that review process to make sure she got help. So that would be a yellow flag client. So, you know, is there a way to go down the path and have the software modified to be able to do yellow flagging?
And the short answer is yes, absolutely. It's only money, right? I mean, they won't do it for nothing, but we have had that conversation a zillion times, Kevin, about having a yellow flag, a caution flag, call it whatever you want to call it, but something else besides red flag. Red flag, I don't know, and this is me, when I hear it and it goes through my brain, it says, alert, alert, alert. This person, you know, you need to be very, very careful. Where in your case, it's not that all the time. It's some conference specific limit or whatever. It's just a way to communicate. So again, everybody hears that red flag thing differently, but we can absolutely change the software to do whatever we want it to do. But once again, I think, you know, this starts at the top and everybody's got to be in agreement. So we all know what a red flag really means and what a caution flag really means. And because we do share clients. And that's the problem. I mean, back in the old e-records days, when we had, you know, prior to CMS, every conference owned their own clients. You can do whatever you want. That same client could have been replicated in 14 different conferences with 14 different red flags. Nobody cared, nobody saw it. That's not the world we live in today. Red flag in one conference is red flag in all conferences. So the short answer is absolutely we can change the software to do whatever we want to do it. If we think it's a priority, gets on the list, we ask Aguilar to make the change and we pay for it.
Thanks, John. There's nothing in the chat. So thanks, Kevin.
Anybody
Nothing in
have
the chat. Anybody else?
Okay.
Great presentation, John. That was
Thank
good.
you. I thank you very much for your time. Good luck. And if you have any questions, I know you know how to find me. So send me an email. Take care.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye.